Hello, long time no see. I haven't posted a video in like 2 weeks, I think. Also haven't recorded in like a month. So this is gonna be fun. Today is my March wrap up. It is April 6th when I am recording this. Hopefully it is April 6th when I'm uploading this as well. But I'm going to talk to you about all of the books that I read in March, and if you're new here, I like to go pretty quickly on this, so let's just jump in. I read 11 books in March. 6 of those were audiobooks, 1 of those was an ebook, and 4 of those were physical books. I had 1 5-star, 3 4-stars, 6 3-stars, and 1 2-star. Starting at the top, the first book I read in March was I Am Number 4, The Rebel Alliance, The Lost Files, something like that, by Pittacus Lore, which I believe is a pen name and not the author's real name. But this was an audiobook, and I thought this was the I Am Number 4 book, like the first book in the series when I picked it up. And by the time I realized that this was not that book, I was too far in and like enjoying myself, so I kept listening. This is kind of a in-between novella collection to kind of give more backstory to the I Am Number 4 series. I believe there's like 8 books in that YA sci-fi series, but this is like kind of filler novellas, and I didn't realize that, but they were really good. I was getting context on a story that I didn't know at all, but I was really intrigued by the characters and kind of what was going on and the just general atmosphere of the stories. So I would not say that the I Am Number 4 series is one of those YA series that everyone should read, but I've been kind of interested in it and definitely in a sci-fi mood, so it was fun for me. The next book I read was The Curious Case of Benjamin Button and Other Stories by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and this was also an audiobook. I picked this up because I needed an audiobook to listen to while I was working, and I couldn't remember if I actually liked Fitzgerald's writing or not. The only thing I've read by him was The Great Gatsby. Let's just say I don't like Fitzgerald much at all. I mean, his writing style is excellent, and I think the stories he's trying to tell are like universal and American at their core, but I don't like the way that he uses women as just objects in his stories, so I probably won't read much more of him. But that is all to say that's just my preference. If you enjoy Fitzgerald and his writing and the female thing doesn't bother you, you're good to go. He's accepted as a very well-known and highly praised author for a reason. This is just my opinion on it. The Benjamin Button story was like the first one in the collection, but it was like super short and nothing like the movie at all if you've seen the movie. The next book I read was I Am Number 4 by Pittacus Lore, and this was also a audiobook. After reading the like novella collection and then going back to the original book in the series, I was disappointed in book 1, where not book 2, the middle collection, whatever, was a lot of fun. Book 1 was like exposition heavy and very YA tropey, like early 2000s YA tropey. There's a love interest. If you've seen the movie, it's very similar to that, but the romance was like the most insubstantial romance I've ever read in my life. They didn't talk while they were around each other. They just like snuggled, and then they were like, I love you, and like, you don't know each other. Anyway, that's beside the point. Book 1 was not great. I gave it 2 stars, but I'm going to continue on with the series because I feel like it could go some fun places, and based off of the writing of the novella collection, I think the author's writing improves as he goes along, so we'll see how the rest of the series goes. The next book I read was Calibans War by James S.A. Corey, and I have a reading vlog out for this one. I haven't decided if I want to do a full review for it. It would be very short because I don't really have much to say other than it was not as good as book 1, and it was basically just like a rewrite of book 1. It followed the same exact beats. We got some new characters, and the plot didn't really progress much at all. The underlying mystery of the story was not compelling to me, and we didn't get a lot of more information about what I want more information about, what I'm reading the Expanse series for, so that was disappointing. But it has not hindered my desire to read the rest of the series. I'll probably pick up book 3 in April. I do have to say, though, that some of my problems with the first book, as far as like representation goes, and it being very American for a space opera, were definitely like improved upon in book 2. The authors really did a good job of adding in more representation and a lot more female characters that weren't just side like love interests. The next book I read was Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. Shauna McGuire is one of the authors that I wanted to read more of in 2021, so I think I'm definitely doing that. I am glad that I read book 2 before book 1, because book 1 doesn't give you a lot of context and it follows a lot of characters. We're really only in the narrative head of one character, but we're learning about multiple, like 5 or 6 characters, and it's a very short book, so we didn't really get a lot of time with any of them, and the world building was kind of background. But in book 2, all of that's to the forefront, and book 2 is so much better than book 1. So if you're interested in reading the Every Heart a Doorway Wayward Children series, they're very short YA novels. I would classify them as YA because there's some sexual content that I would not give to middle grade readers, but they center around the children of like stories, portal fantasy stories. They go through their portal and then they come back and they end up in the real world, like Narnia style, and there's like a home to help them transition back into the real world. So we get all kinds of adventures and shenanigans. I'm excited to continue on in the series for this one as well. The next book I read was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This is part of my read-through that I'm doing with my husband on audiobook. He's never read the Harry Potter books before, and we're listening to them together. Book 5 is not my favorite, but it's not because of angsty Harry. Like, he gets a lot of flack for this book, but it's really I don't like it because of the way the toxic friendships are shown. Like, they're really at the forefront in this book. They're all kind of terrible to each other, and I don't like Harry and Cho's relationship and how She Who Must Not Be Named writes Cho's character. It's really insulting as an emotional woman myself, and I understand the argument that it's from Harry's perspective and this is how Harry views it because he's emotionally stunted, but I feel like it could have been done much better than it was, and I'm not really going to say anything else about this book. Next, I read Hummingbird Salamander by Jeff Vanderveer, and this was an arc from the author, from the Goodreads giveaway that I won, and I can't believe I won a Goodreads giveaway. But Jeff Vanderveer is one of my favorite authors, if you've been on the channel at all. This is his new book that I think was supposed to be released today. It may have actually been released early, but that's a side note. I do have an entire review for this that will be going up on Saturday, and thank you to Goodreads and the publishers for sending me an arc. Hummingbird Salamander is an eco-thriller. In this particular thriller, it's set up as there's a mystery in which we're unraveling the inner workings of like a big corporation type deal, like family drug cartel type thing. I don't know, it's kind of convoluted, but there's stuff going on with like exotic animal trafficking, and there's stuff going on with like environmentalist stuff. Man, I'm describing this horribly. Go watch the review just for like my blurb at the beginning, because I don't even remember how to explain this without spoilers. But if you've been thinking about picking up a Jeff Vanderveer, his writing is exquisite. It's very atmospheric and intense and intellectual. Like, I can't listen to background noise while I'm reading his books because I have to focus and pay attention really well. I also feel like every one of his books that I've read, I am missing so much, but I'll get it on reread. Like, I want to reread all of his books as soon as I'm done reading them the first time through, which I feel like is unique to the author. But I gave this book 4 stars. It did not blow me out of the water, but it was really good. Thrillers aren't super my thing, although I was in the mood for a thriller when I picked this one up. But I found the protagonist to be a very compelling character, and Vandermeer writes female protagonists so well, and it's shocking to me because I'm very particular about my female protagonists. But this story really takes a look at certain types of people who aren't actually meant for a normal life of like domesticity and a job and a family, and how when something kind of fantastic enters their life, they like grab onto it and don't want to let go because they weren't meant for a normal life. They were meant for something more. Vandermeer also does a really good job of weaving in these eco themes. He's a very eco-conscious person in general. He loves nature, and I follow him on Twitter, and he's like constantly talking about, I think his backyard is like full of creatures and plants, and it's amazing. But he writes this stuff into his books, but it's not overbearing. I don't like books that are really preachy with their themes, and he could tend to go in the preachy way, but he does it so well that I don't really mind at all. Next, I read Good Omens, and this was the audiobook BBC dramatization version. This is by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, and it's like really well known. I have been trying to read some Neil Gaiman because he's one of the authors on my list of I want to read, but I have discovered that Terry Pratchett is not an author for me. So I don't know how well this one, I'm not really sure how I felt about this story. It's very interesting. So essentially, the Antichrist has been born, and he's bringing about the apocalypse. kind of unknowingly, but an angel and a demon team up to try to stop the apocalypse from happening because they realize that they like Earth and they don't want the world to be destroyed. They enjoy their existence and they believe that everything will be destroyed in the apocalypse, and they don't want that to happen. It's a very interesting take on the whole apocalypse kind of conversation and angels and demons in the fight against evil and what evil is as well. I'm not sure if this dramatization was the best thing for me. It's not an audiobook. They've taken out all of like the descriptions and the qualifiers. It's just the voices of the characters and their conversations with background noise. So I'm not sure if it was my thing, but you might enjoy it if you like that sort of thing. I don't know. The next book I read was Born by Jeff Vandermeer. I went on a Vandermeer kick. I will probably have a review up for this at some point. I definitely have a reading vlog, but I haven't posted them yet because I'm behind. But Born is also set in kind of a post-apocalyptic scenario. We are following Rachel, our protagonist, who is a scavenger in this city that is kind of controlled by a bioengineered giant bear who was released onto the city by they call it the company. It's like a scientific experimental lab where they created all this biotechnology. It's like technology mixed with biology, nature, and then they release it out into the city to kind of watch what it does, and it basically tears the city apart. Rachel is a scavenger, and one of the ways she scavengers is by climbing on the body of this like 3-story tall giant bear whenever it's napping, because it picks up stuff as it walks around the city. Anyways, one day she finds this weird creature thing connected to the bear, and she takes it home with her. And she at first thinks it's a plant, then she kind of thinks it's some sort of weird amoeba cell-like animal thing, and then it develops a consciousness and starts to talk to her. And it's really about Rachel's relationship with this creature named Born, that she names it Born. I loved this book so much. I gave it 4 stars because there was just like a little bit missing in parts, and I kind of got bored occasionally. But I like to compare this story to like Because of Winn-Dixie. It's a very like typical girl and her dog story, but in this weird sci-fi post-apocalyptic setting. It's also almost kind of a romance between Rachel and her friend, lover, partner, Wick, who is a scientist who works on this biotech, and their relationship and their romance in this post-apocalyptic setting. It's very unique, really good. It's Vandermeer. I already gushed about him. I love his writing, everything that he does. If you're gonna start Vandermeer, I might actually suggest Born. Except it's kind of slow. I don't know. Okay, moving on. The next book I read was Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, and I'm just gonna say, no one told me this wasn't a standalone. I thought this book was a standalone, and it is totally the start of a series that is not complete yet, and I hate reading series that aren't complete yet. Black Sun features 3 characters. One is a priest of a religion that's based in almost science and astronomy and astrology combined, but this religion is like the governing force over the people. It also follows a girl named Ciala, who is like a pirate captain of a ship, nautical lady, but she's got like some magic abilities. And then it follows Serapio, I am pronouncing it incorrectly, I'm sure, but he has been chosen to become the reincarnation of a god. It's a very interesting take on the chosen one trope and the destiny trope and the reincarnating god thing. I've never read that before. It was a really, really good story. I wish I'd have known that it was a start to a series, because the pacing was off to me for a standalone, but then I got to the end and was like, oh no, this cliffhanger means it's a series. It's a really compelling story, a very interesting world. It's based off of like pre-Columbian mythology, and it's fantasy with magic and some of my favorite tropes. I love like ship journeys and nautical tales where they're on a boat, and like the magic that comes with that in fantasy stories. So it was right up my alley. I'm sure you've heard about it before, but it was really good. And the last book I read in the month of March was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I just want to say, why did no one tell me that this book was a masterpiece? I listened to this on audiobook and it was like transformative. I'm honestly not sure if I would have had the same experience reading the book physically, because the way the audiobook is done is each character has their own narrator. So this book is written in an interview narrative style. It's kind of like one of those Where Are They Now videos for bands, like documentary style, but it's based off of a fictional band from the 70s that kind of blew up and got really big after one album, but then they dissolved really quickly and they didn't get to see like where the rest of their band would have gone. Daisy Jones is kind of your typical manic pixie dream girl, except she has a heavy substance abuse disorder and it really affects her interactions with the band. I cried multiple times in this book. It's a very intense story about people and the struggles that people face with, especially going after this dream of like trying to make it big and be the biggest band in the world. But I really felt that these characters were real and their struggles were real, and I wanted to go listen to their music, but they don't exist. I don't know if this would be called historical fiction because it is set in the 70s and the 70s atmosphere is a heavy part of the story, or if it's literary fiction because of the themes that it explores, but it's excellent. And I've seen a lot of people put it on their TBRs, but I haven't heard much about it, and I just loved it. 70s rock and roll mixed with the drugs and the sex of the era, but also the heartwarming pain of being a human being. Those are all the books that I read in March. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, or feel free to link me to your March wrap-up if you've posted one. I post videos every Wednesday and Saturday, at least I try to. If you like the way that I talk about the books that I'm reading, make sure you subscribe. I hope you all are enjoying what you're reading, and I will see you in the next video.